Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought that I would review this little video that I thought personally was very particularly interesting. And this is going to be a video by the boxing channel known as Blue Blood Sports TV. And I like to review Mr. Blue Blood here and there because I think out of the majority of the LDBC channels and new media channels that I tend to see, I think that Blue Blood usually comes across as the most level headed and logical guy that I can see. Now, of course, he does bring up certain points, in my opinion, that I don't always agree with, and he still is going to be a part of that LDBC cult. It just is what it is. So he is going to be a little bit emotional overall in some of his narratives, in my opinion. They are maybe going to be a bit skewed here and there. It just is what it is. But, whether overall we're talking about that or not, I do think that Blue Blood, all in all, I think that he has somewhat of a respectable platform. But I thought that this conversation was very particularly interesting. And today we're going to be talking about Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder. And I really wanted to do a video on this, but I didn't really know how to start it off or how to really base a conversation around it. Well, I thought that this video was perfect. And within this video, we're going to be talking about the whole entire Deontay Wilder package. We're going to be talking about his most recent fight against Robert Elenius. We're going to talk about what recently Mr. Teddy Atlas had to say about Deontay Wilder. We're going to talk about the trilogy fights with Tyson Fury. And we're also going to state overall what he recently stated at the press conference when apparently he was breaking down and was emotional. And I really also wanted to talk about that as well. But anyways, we're going to get into this video. And I thought that it would be very particularly interesting because you're going to see a multitude of viewpoints. You're going to see Teddy Atlas's viewpoint. You're going to see Blue Blood's viewpoint. And you're also going to see mine. But anyways, let's get into the video. Let's see what they all have to say.
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, here's my response that everybody wanted me to give to legendary retired Hall of Fame trainer, well-renowned trainer, colorful boxing analyst and boxing pundit, and that is none other than Teddy Atlas, who is now a podcaster. He has a podcast, The Fight with Teddy Atlas. And Teddy Atlas, he did a reaction video to Olympic bronze medalist, former WBC American heavyweight world champion, superstar boxer, Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder, who is now, Deontay Wilder is now 43 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, 42 big wins by way of knockout. He is 36 years of age, 6'7", with an 83-inch arm reach after he brutally first round knocked out heavyweight star title contender Robert Helenius. Okay, Deontay Wilder knocked out Robert Helenius in the first round of their fight, and obviously everybody, it was the talk of the town, it was the talk of the boxing world, and so Teddy Atlas, obviously, he responded to this, and he gave Deontay Wilder a lot of credit and props, but on the same token, he also threw shots at Deontay Wilder. Okay, and he stated that he could now like Deontay Wilder. He didn't like Deontay Wilder in the past, and now he can view Deontay Wilder as a world champion, which is irresponsible on the part of Teddy Atlas because, well, let's be realistic.
Well, let me pause it right there before Blue Blood Sports TV goes into it any further. And I would somewhat agree with him, but what I am going to state is this. I don't think that Teddy Atlas meant any ill will overall towards that of Deontay Wilder. I just think all that he meant to say was that he did not view Deontay Wilder as carrying himself like a proper champion, meaning on the know like an empathetic or someone on the know that was quote unquote humble. Now, I really don't give a shit whether fighters do that or not, but I think that's all really Teddy Atlas meant.
Emotional response on the part of Teddy Atlas. That's what this is. Okay, it's Teddy Atlas being emotionally responding to Deontay Wilder, not who Deontay Wilder is as a fighter, but how he perceives Deontay Wilder outside the ring. Okay, so Teddy Atlas says that he can now view Deontay Wilder as a world champion. He didn't view him as a world champion in the past. Well, that is the most irresponsible.
Through my online store alone, we've sold over $500,000 worth of spices. That's so crazy.
Ludicrous thing you could possibly say, seeing as though Deontay Wilder is one of only 6 fighters in the history of the sport of boxing to successfully defend his heavyweight title 10 times. And it actually is only 5 because one of those guys is Muhammad Ali, who did it twice. So he's saying that he never viewed Deontay Wilder as a world champion. I don't care how you perceive.
Well, listen, I'll state this about Deontay Wilder. And in my opinion, he does deserve credit for those championship overall defenses. But these same guys, like Blue Blood Sports TV, they never talk about Gennady Golovkin or someone else that they tend not to like in the same breath. Like Gennady Golovkin, apparently, at least from what I remember, I believe that he even broke the record of middleweight defenses, middleweight title defenses, even above that of a Bernard Hopkins. Does anyone say that, oh, well, Gennady Golovkin, we need to respect Gennady Golovkin more because Gennady Golovkin ended up defending the titles even more than Bernard Hopkins? He's one of the only few men in history that have done that. They don't give a shit about certain fighters like that. So, I don't mind if you're going to bring up that point, but let's keep the same energy, please, because we all know that if it was another fighter besides that of a black American fighter, you would not overall be saying that. Now, just to talk about it logically and objectively, and not really even to bring up that point, Deontay Wilder and his 10 title defenses, I give him credit, but to me, it's kind of almost empty stats. And a certain amount of people on the know, they may disagree, and I'm not blaming this all on Deontay Wilder. I'm sure that there's maybe a couple of fights that maybe he tried to get that did not come to fruition. But at the end of the day, no one's really going to care 10, 20 years later on down the line from now, and they take a look at those 10 title defenses, and they see someone like an Artur Spiltzka, or someone like a old, fat, washed-up Chris Arreola. Well, I don't know why I said old and fat. Chris Arreola's always been a fat ass. But when it comes down to it all in all, no one's going to care that you defended it against Bermain Stavern and Johan Duapas. And, the only decent fighter that you ever really defended it against was Luis Ortiz. And then, of course, there's that one draw against Tyson Fury when it comes down to it. But really, you should have not got a draw in that fight. You clearly should have lost. It just is what it is. So it's no offense against Deontay Wilder. But once again, I keep it real on the channel. It just is what it is. And when I say that I keep it real, I'm not talking about emotional bullshit that I want to put out there about fighters just because I would quote-unquote not like them. But when we just want to talk about the factual argument, Deontay Wilder in these next few up-and-coming years, if he is able to get those big fights, he's going to have to do very, very good in some of those fights. He's going to have to beat the fighters like Andrew Ruiz, Anthony Joshua, Joe Joyce, Alexander Usyk. If he truly wants to be remembered as one of the greatest fighters of all time, or if he wants to be remembered even as one of the greater heavyweights of his time, he's going to have to beat some of those guys. Because if Deontay Wilder ends up getting in the ring with some of those guys and losing the majority of those big fights, all he's going to be remembered as is a dude that was able to get a hold of the WBC title, but then as soon as he faced repeated A-grade competition, he wasn't really able to beat him. Now, some people may think that this is going a little bit of a step too far, but if Deontay Wilder ends up losing those big fights, he's pretty much just going to be remembered as the heavyweight version of Eddie Lacy, Jeff Lacy. That's pretty much all he's going to be remembered as, at least in my opinion. So we'll see what happens. Now, do I believe more than likely that Deontay Wilder will end up better than Jeff Lacy? In my opinion, yes. I think that Deontay Wilder is more of a threat to the heavyweight division than what Jeff Lacy ever was to Joe Calzaghe or some of those other dudes within that weight division. But when it comes down to it, once again, we'll see what happens. Because if Deontay Wilder within these next few years, if the only win in his career that is decent ends up being against Luis Ortiz, and he ends up having a couple losses to Tyson Fury and also a loss to Andrew Ruiz and also a loss to AJ Anthony Joshua or Joe Joyce or Alexander Usyk, people are going to look back on Deontay Wilder's career and they're going to say, wow, that dude really was not as good as what a lot of people tried to say that he was. It just is what it is.
Deontay Wilder outside the ring, his personality or his character, but you got to respect what he does in the ring, and he's a heavyweight champion, successfully defended his title 10 times. So this is only in the sport of boxing can you say things like this, because the sport of boxing is the Wild Wild West, point blank.
Well, actually, boxing is not the only type of thing that you can say overall like this. Now, maybe to a degree, you can say it a little bit more because boxing, when it comes down to it, there's so many different belts, and overall there's so many different types of fighters. And when you talk about a weight division, there's so many fights that could or could not potentially happen. That's why, a lot of the times certain people may be able to get away with a statement like that because, they can maybe allege that this guy didn't face the best of competition as of yet because a division, unlike overall like a football team, or unlike overall like an NBA conference, they don't just have like a few teams per conference or overall per division. A division overall has dozens upon dozens of fighters. Now, of course, there's only one top 10 list when it comes down to it, but they still overall, well, actually, I shouldn't even say that. They do have multiple top 10 lists because of each and every single main belt. So, boxing is always just going to be like that just because of the way that it's sanctioned. It just is what it is overall. But there are other sports where certain people have said certain derogatory things about certain athletes like that, like Shannon Sharp against Tom Brady, Skip Bayless against LeBron James, Skip Bayless with Stephen Curry, and a few others overall with other athletes. I've heard many people claim that Novak Djokovic, that they do not believe that he's a 21-time Grand Slam champion because apparently he beat the weaker era when it came down to a blah, blah, blah. So I've been hearing this, this is nothing new across sports. In boxing, it ends up happening a little bit more commonly, but it happens in every sport.
Right? So in the sport of boxing, imagine in any other sport, imagine you saying, well, you know what? Tom Brady is not a world champion. He's not a Super Bowl champion because I don't like how Tom Brady carries himself outside the sport of football. Or imagine you saying LeBron James is really not a world champion. I don't view LeBron James as a world champion because how he perceives himself, how you perceive him outside of the sport of basketball. Imagine if you say Roger Clemens is not a World Series champion because how you perceive his character outside the sport of baseball.
Well, actually, if we are going to talk about that, Blue, and I do agree with your point to a certain degree, there's actually a lot of LeBron James fans, especially in the media, that actually tried to debate that LeBron James is over Michael Jordan because of his alleged, politics and what he allegedly does for the black community. And Michael Jordan apparently never did anything for the black community. At least that's what a lot of them overall try to debate with that bullshit. So overall, actually, there are certain debates out there like that, but I understand your point.
Sounds ludicrous. It sounds absolutely outlandish is what it sounds like. And he goes on to say, but in the same token, he gives Deontay Wilder credit, right? So some may view it as backhand. A lot of people wanted my response on it. And
I don't think overall that Teddy Atlas, in my opinion, meant it to be anything harmful. Now, can some people overall claim that it was harmful? You can claim to a degree that it was, but I don't think it's really that big of a deal anyway. I think that all Teddy Atlas was trying to say is that Deontay Wilder was not carrying himself like a champion before he ended up getting humbled against Tyson Fury.
It's just that. It's backhanded compliments, right? So now he's doing what you like him to do, how he's carrying himself, how you want him to carry himself, and now you view him as a champion? It don't matter how you view him, how you want him to carry himself, or how you perceive him to carry himself. The bottom line is he's a world champion. He's successfully defended his titles 10 times, period. Okay? And so with that said, it's irresponsible because, again, this is why the sport of boxing is in the state that it's in. The reason the sport of boxing is in the state that it's in, and it's always going to be in the state, because there's too much emotion involved in the sport.
Well, there's too much emotion involved in every single sport because you got a lot of fanboys, you got a lot overall of fangirls, you just got a lot of fans in general, and you're not supposed to be that overall because it will ruin your logic and objectivity, or at least overall, not to the degree to where it will completely ruin your logic and objectivity. I don't personally overall like to be a fanboy of anything because that ruins my logic and objectivity. That doesn't mean that I may not root for certain people here and there, or that I may not like certain styles over others, or that I may not have certain favorite fighters or favorite athletes to watch, but I'm always going to give a logical and objective criticism.
Regardless, again, like I said, how you perceive a fighter outside the ring, if his character or his personality is not your cup of tea, well, that's not up to you as a professional boxing pundit and analyst. That has nothing to do with you. You're supposed to analyze the sport itself. How does he handle himself in the squared circle? Period. What he says outside the squared circle, how he carries himself outside the squared circle is none of your concerns. It's all a matter of what he does. The same reason that people refuse to put Jamel Charlo in the pound for pound list, because people don't like his personality outside the sport, outside the square circle.
Well, I don't really have a problem with Jamel Charlo's personality. The reason why Jamel Charlo doesn't make my personal top 10 pound for pound list is because I don't think A, that he really has the resume, at least definitively, to be up there. And on top of that, he ended up losing to a debatable C grade fighter just a few years ago. A fighter that never won a belt before or after he fought and beat Jamel Charlo in the first fight against Tony Harrison. Now, if you debate Jamel Charlo within your top, 10 pound for pound, I don't really have a problem with it, but the main problem I always have with certain debates overall is that, oh, I think he's top five. I really don't see how you legitimately, if you debate things out logically and soundly, how he really could even possibly be in top five. I just don't see it because you can't be at the peak of your career and the best champion that you've ever defeated was Brian Castano. And just a couple years ago, at your best point in your career, you lost to a dude that never won a belt before he fought you, and on top of that, was knocked out 3 separate times before he fought you. So, no, I'm sorry. He's not top five pound for pound.
Well, I don't personally care how you view Jamel Charlo's personality outside the sport of boxing. You're supposed to be judging him as an analyst on what he does inside the square circle. Everything else is, if you're not his friend and his family member, why do you care how his character is? When you're talking about him to the fans, okay, you have a responsibility when you're talking to the fans to tell the truth, not based off of your personal emotional attachment to a fighter or not. Period. Right? So it's not up to you to, I don't personally like it. That's not up to you. So I don't personally like him, so I'm not going to give him the just due credit he deserves for what he actually does in the square.
Well, I certainly understand what Mr. Blue Blood Sports TV is saying, and I agree 100%. But once again, I don't know if Teddy Atlas was trying to take it that far. I think all what Teddy Atlas meant, and we do know, as Mr. Blue Blood said, that Teddy Atlas is a very colorful analyst, colorful analyst in the sport of boxing. Sometimes he can be a little bit off kilter, but when it comes down to it, I think I understood what he was saying. What I will say is this: Deontay Wilder certainly was not carrying himself in the best way in some of his fights before he ended up losing to Tyson Fury. And certain people, of course, took a look at Deontay Wilder crying and, breaking down when it came down to it. And they're like, oh, look at Deontay Wilder. He's just so pure. And all in all, he's just overall a guy that is just so humble. Please. This is the same exact dude overall that claimed that he wanted a dead body on his record against Dominic Breazeale when he was undefeated. So spare me with that bullshit. Now, that's not me claiming that Deontay Wilder overall is not a good dude outside the ring. He seems like a decent guy to me. I think all in all that he goes on the pro-racial shit a little bit too much for my own liking, but it is what it is. I really don't care. But in terms of his character, he seems like a decent guy, decent father, decent husband when it comes down to a decent guy all in general. I don't really have a problem with Deontay Wilder. But let's also be real. This is the same exact guy that claimed that at once upon a time he wanted a body and to kill somebody on his record. And on top of that, against Tyson Fury, he was trying to degrade the win and still degrades the win to this day by claiming that he was poisoned, that the suit was too heavy when it came down to it. And on top of that, that Tyson Fury had something in the gloves. So spare me with the Deontay Wilder is humble bullshit.
Circle, right? That's irresponsible. It's disrespectful to the sport.
And that was the same exact thing with Mr. Teofimo Lopez. People take a look at Teofimo Lopez now, and these same channels that want to feel so bad for Deontay Wilder, let's be real, just because he's a black American fighter, it just is what it is. They take a look at Teofimo Lopez and they basically poke fun at him for some of the issues that he's having right now. And I get it to a degree because you know what? Even though some of the issues that they're dealing with, they are somewhat severe, when you act like a brash asshole, when you're on top of the world, when it comes down to it, you cannot feel bad or you cannot expect anything different when the world overall comes back at you with the same energy that you were putting out. All right, it just is what it is. Deontay Wilder sometimes will act like a brash, narcissistic asshole before overall some of the build-ups to his fights. It just is what it is. And the same thing with Teofimo Lopez. And now all of a sudden they lose. They want to cry and bitch and moan that, oh, we're risking our lives and, how dare people overall do this. Listen, all that is understandable. I get it. But at the end of the day, to a degree, they got what they deserved in terms of criticism.
And it doesn't help the sport blossom, period. So then Teddy Atlas, he goes on to say that Deontay Wilder took a humble beating from Tyson Fury in those last two fights.
He did take a humble beating, and that's exactly why Deontay Wilder was crying on the podium overall after Robert Elenius. That's exactly why he was crying. Because really what Deontay Wilder wanted to say is that now, overall, that I know for sure, or that people know that I am not the best heavyweight of this generation. I noticed all in all that the amount of attention that I am getting is not the same amount. And I noticed that a lot of the people that I thought maybe were close to me or my fans, that they really were not there for me in the first place. That's basically all Deontay Wilder was saying. So Deontay Wilder, he wasn't really crying for Robert Elenius. He was crying for himself. And listen, I don't mind it. I think that there's a bit of him maybe that was crying for Robert Elenius. But make no mistake about it, if you know how to read that situation, Deontay Wilder, those tears were mainly all in all because he's still having a little bit of a tough time dealing with the loss of Tyson Fury. But he got a humbling ass whooping. Teddy Atlas is 100% correct. Just like Teofimo got humbled against George Kambosos.
And now it's made him essentially a nice guy, and now he's likable. Let's listen to what Teddy Atlas had to say. So, it's, again, you viewing him as a non-champion because, well, how he carried himself towards his former trainer, Mark Breland, or how he carries himself towards Tyson Fury is none of your business. Your job as an analyst and for fans to get your professional opinion on what's taking place, right? That's what is based off of what takes place in the squared circle, not how he carries himself outside the squared circle, period. So listen.
I don't know if he got humbled by the beating it took in his last fight, and he took a beating, and he showed a lot of heart, and he also dropped Fury, but 2 in a row. I think it changed things in his life.
That's what I was going to say.
I think it certainly did change things in his life, and when fighters take an ass whooping like that, it does completely change their life, because they're like, God damn, when it comes down to it, I'm not really as good as what I thought I was, or maybe, I don't know, I should be a little bit more humble. It happened overall, and not every fighter gets humbled after a loss, but it happened to Teofimo Lopez. I seen the same thing with Cody Garbrandt, after he ended up losing to TJ Dillashaw. I seen it with Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury. And then now, all of a sudden, they want to say, well, overall, we're risking our lives at these fighters. You were risking your life as a fighter when you claimed that you wanted a dead body on your record. The only reason overall why, you're claiming that, we're risking our lives is because now you know the personal experience of how it feels to lose in a fight. And I don't mind Deontay Wilder saying that, overall. I don't go after him for that. But when it comes down to it, once again, let's just not sit here and act like Deontay Wilder had no brashness or no narcissistic ways about him before this ass whooping.
Really do, and I think he's a more mature, humble person now. But again, I never.
So he said it changed things in his life. That's who cares about what it changed in his life and didn't change in his life. That's not what it's about. It's about point. The point is, it's about this. What he did in the square circle. It's not about what it changed in his life or didn't change in his life. That's not up to you to judge what him based off of his character and personality outside the ring. It's up to you to judge and give the fans your professional opinion and outlook of what takes place in the square circle, not his
I would agree with that.
Character outside of it.
Saw him as a world champion until the other night, and he's not a champion right now, technically, but he acted like a champ.
So listen, I never. He says I never seen him as a world champion until the other night.
Well, he's a more mature, humble person now, but again, I never saw him as a world champion until the other night, and he's not a champion right now, technically. But
so you misleading the people 2 times over. You never saw him as a world champion when he was a world champion, but now you view him as a world champion when he's technically not a world champion? Only in boxing.
But he acted like a champion when
on that point, let me also bring this up. You notice when certain fighters or certain athletes that are usually talked down to a great degree, or a lot of the same criticizers that, end up criticizing them when they're at their biggest threatening position, when they end up taking a loss or when they're no longer a threat, all of a sudden, those same people, they may show a decent amount of respect because they always had, a decent amount of respect for that fighter or for that athlete in the first place. They just did not want them above a certain athlete that they ended up loving even more. So it just is what it is. That's why a lot of people say there's a very thin line between love and hate. Because you notice that a lot of the people that used to love certain athletes, all of a sudden they hate them when they don't live up to expectations. And certain people that used to hate those certain athletes, sometimes they'll end up loving them because they're no longer a threat.
He said afterwards, we got to care about each other more. We got to stop with the hate. When he did that, I was stunned. I said, good for you. Good. Wow. You know what? I could like you now. I mean, like, not that he needs.
I could like you now. What does that have to do with what he does in the ring? Absolutely nothing. You liking him now because of what? Now because of what? Because of what? Because he showed that he has a relationship with Robert Hellenius? Because that's what it boils down to. He has a relationship with Robert Hellenius. Period. So now you can like him now because of what?
Me to like him, he don't give a crap, I'm sure. But I don't care. I'm
1000% sure he don't care or don't give a crap what Teddy Atlas like him or don't like him.
Care about what's important to me and what I believe in and what I think matters. I have grandchildren. I have children. I want to see people.
So the bottom line is this, right? Is that you're supposed to people tune in to Teddy Atlas to get his professional opinion on what he think Deontay Wilder has done in the ring or hasn't done in the ring. Point blank and period, right? That's ultimately why people tune in, because they want to hear Teddy Atlas's professional outlook on Deontay Wilder's fight, not his character, not his personality.
Read it right.
Well, actually, that's where I have to disagree with you, because there's a lot of people, including yourself, Mr. Blue Blood Sports TV, and that's why you were so over emotional when Deontay Wilder ended up losing. And that's why you also were one of the ones that alleged that Tyson Fury ended up cheating. And you were not the only one. Fanon International Boxing was another one. Aki TV, Dante's Boxing Nation, Champside, Boxing Ego, 78 Sports TV, all these other dumbass channels when it came down to it. They were also alleging that Deontay Wilder got cheated. So no, I can't agree with you overall that, people don't tune into Deontay Wilder's fights for his personality. I can't agree with that whatsoever. That's a big part overall of his brand, is basically being this generation's overall Malcolm X. That's overall what he wants to be, and that's what you wanted him to be. And I was proven 1,000% correct when 78 Sports TV at one point in time said, and he pretty much spoke for the other channels as well, that he is this version's Muhammad Ali with what he does with, social rights, or, all in all with what he stands up for. So that's the main reason why they like Deontay Wilder so much, because they take a look at Deontay Wilder as a leader and as someone on the know that they truly want to be. But anyway.
Heavyweight champ to act like that. You want to be able to tell people he's in.
You want the heavyweight champ to act like that. That's a personal, emotional agenda. That's not reality. So
Well, Mr. Blue Blood Sports TV, I agree with you to the point to where no matter how they act outside the ring, it really shouldn't matter. A champion is a champion. I do agree with you there. But if we're also going to be real about Mr. Deontay Wilder said a lot of stupid shit and bashful shit before he ended up getting humbled against Tyson Fury. And now I'm supposed to believe that he's this super duper humble person now that he's crying after he got his ass whooped. Let me ask you something. Do you believe that Teofimo Lopez is super duper humble after he ended up getting his ass whooped against George Kambosos? Now all of a sudden he brings up all these issues about, baby mama drama and, people be hating and all this other shit. Well, Teo, you were talking all this shit. You were talking all this shit on Lomachenko and a certain amount of other people, and you were trying to be so bashful and talk all this hot shit, and then when you lose, you don't want any of that energy to return back to you. No, that's not how it works. That's not real life. And it's the same thing with Deontay Wilder. You talk all this shit and you say that Fury cheated in the fight when it came down to it and all this other stupid narcissistic shit when it comes down to it. You fire your trainer, Mark Breland, claiming that he poisoned, and you don't expect anything to come back at you? It just is what it is. Now, don't get me wrong. That's not 100% the point here, but once again, for the people claiming that, oh man, I feel so bad for Deontay Wilder, all Deontay Wilder went through was a humbled ass whooping, which is something that more than likely each and every single one of us at one point in time, whether it's physical or spiritual or emotional, whatever fucking, sort of dimension it is, we're all gonna have to deal with at one point in time. Where we, sometimes we almost break down, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever the hell it is, and we have to somewhat reform ourselves. Deontay Wilder's dealing with that right now.
Your heavyweights to act like that, but there's millions of boxing fans that don't care how. You may get some people think that he should act more flamboyant. There's different tastes with different people.
How much more flamboyant can Deontay Wilder act throughout some of his fights? It just is what it is.
Everybody's taste is completely different.
I'm not here all in all to see someone overall be flamboyant in the fight. I'm here overall to see you do your job. All that extra shit, in my opinion, is not needed. But, it is what it is. That's not me saying that you don't need any personality. But all this shit overall with Deontay Wilder alleging that Tyson Fury cheated and all that sort of stupid bullshit that a lot of times he talks about, that's just not necessary.
That's what you want your heavyweight champion. That's how you want your heavyweight champion to react, right? Some people want, a lot of people want their heavyweight champion to tell the absolute truth about what's going on in the sport of boxing. Hence the reason Teddy Atlas stated why he got, released from ESPN, because he was telling the truth. Because why? Some people want their boxing analysts and reporters to act like, well, Max Kellerman, who don't tell the truth, who's not going to go on the rant. It's personal. That's your own personal liking. That has nothing to do with overall in the sport.
Inspiration.
I know people will. Charles Barkley, who I love, and he's one of.
It's amazing because Muhammad Ali, people didn't like Muhammad Ali, right? Wonder why.
The greats, and he's so.
Well, there's a lot of people that didn't like Muhammad Ali, and you can certainly allege that that was a big part of a racial issue. And there are certain double standards here and there to where you can claim that there's, arrogant Caucasian athletes or arrogant, other type of athletes, and they don't get the same criticism. But at the end of the day, if you're very bashful or if you come across as decently arrogant, you can't be surprised when a certain amount of people criticize you at your lowest point.
And he's great, and he's gutsy and say what.
People ain't like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali is far apart. Both heavyweight champions.
He believes.
Right, people didn't like Mike Tyson, but let's also be real about Mike Tyson here for a minute. Mike Tyson had a lot of demons in his closet, and Mike Tyson was my favorite fighter growing up. I like Mike Tyson, and he seems all around like a decent guy. Let's just not sit here and act overall like Mike Tyson, like the only reason why people apparently disliked him was because he was a black fighter. No, the reason why certain people maybe didn't like Mike Tyson was because sometimes he came off like a goddamn maniac. That's the reason why. And on top of that, he's a convicted rapist. Now, in my opinion, is there a debate to where he actually did that? Do I believe there's a possibility of him being set up? Yes, but Mike Tyson was drugged out for the majority of his career. That dude was a fucking psycho. So at the end of the day, it just is what it is.
He wants.
Shop the latest cardio collection.
So there you have it, right? Teddy Atlas said he took a humble beating. At the end of the day, what Deontay Wilder did was knock out Robert Helenius, announce that he's back, point blank and period. That's all that counts. That's all that should matter. It has nothing to do with your personal agenda, period. So it looks like Deontay Wilder could be fighting former unified heavyweight world champion, Mexican superstar boxer Andy Ruiz in his next fight. Let's see how that unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. Y'all haven't subscribed.
But anyways, that's really about it for today. I just thought that I would review that because I found it very particularly interesting. But I do agree with the vast majority of what Blue Blood Sports TV has to say. I don't think that Teddy Atlas really meant to discredit Deontay Wilder as a champion, because then I think that he would have brought up overall some of his fights. But when it comes down to it, I think all Teddy meant was that Deontay was not carrying himself overall like a true champion should. Now, if he was trying to discredit Wilder as a champion, in my opinion, that doesn't matter, because it's not overall about how they carry themselves outside of the ring. At the end of the day, I'll use this for an example. Kevin Spacey, from what overall we've heard about him, he seems like a real piece of shit person overall outside of acting. I still believe that he had excellent performances in movies. I thought that he was great in overall. What the hell was that one movie that he played in with Benicio del Toro? The Usual Suspects. He also was great, I believe, in a few other movies when it came down to it. At the end of the day, we do have to separate the personality from what they're able to do with their life or with their job. You can still have piece of shit people when it comes down to it. And do I think Deontay Wilder is necessarily a piece of shit person? No, I'm not saying that. I think sometimes he's a bit extra, but at the end of the day, he still is a decently great fighter. How great of a fighter? We're going to find out within these next few upcoming years. But, I do agree with the vast majority of what Blue had to say. But that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all later, and we will see what happens with Mr. Deontay Wilder.